Welcome to Break the Limits podcast, where we interview achievers to find out how they break their limits to inspire you to break your limits as well. And I'm Daryl. And today our guest, I'm extremely humbled to have him here. I'm really inspired by his journey. He's an underdog. He's a badass. And he went from earning 3K every single month, 3 consecutive month, 1K FYC, 1K commission, to achieving his first MDRT in a year. And I would like him to introduce himself directly to you guys. Kenny, please.
Awesome. Okay. Anyways, really great to have you to be on this podcast. Thank you, Daryl, for inviting me as a first guest. I've run a lot of podcasts on my own because I actually, my primary niche is actually to serve career-driven engineers. So actually, I've been on podcasts to actually interview many engineering leaders. So this is the first time I'm on the receiving end as a guest, and I'm really excited to share my thoughts and my journey on how I actually went from struggling, to now really finding myself and finding the conviction in the business. So I'm Kenny. I'm a financial advisor for 3.5 years with Odyssey Advisory. And like I mentioned, I actually primarily serve career-driven engineers now to really help them live their desired life without breaking their bank.
Fantastic. And I'm actually very intrigued, Tell us more about your background. How did you, gone through the kind of adversities that you went through to achieving the first MDRT? Share with us.
Awesome. Okay, so before I share my struggles, I think what would be interesting to share why I even came to in this industry, or how I did chance upon this industry. So I was doing an internship at a previous company. How I landed up there was because I was struggling to find an internship, but somehow managed to chance upon this industry. But back then, I recall that I had a lot of reservations because financial advisory in Singapore is known to be a very stigmatized industry, and I told my friends that I'm getting my hands dirty in this. Then the first thing a lot of my friends tell me, "Are you sure?" And they also ask me, you're studying engineering. What has financial advisory have to do with your degree? Which is a very common misconception. You don't have to be stuck in a mold that that degree is whatever you have to pursue in life. I always feel that degree is just a stepping stone to realize what kind of career that you want to go. And for me, why I actually came into the industry first was really because of more surface level reasons, which is flexibility of time and whatnot. But what really changed for me, right, was when my leader, Don, actually sat me down, and I recall our team back then was in a very small room. Our office is very small, we were a very small team, yet he told me with this full conviction, and he told me that, "Kenny, we are going to shake up the industry." Then I was looking at him, and I was thinking, is this guy for real? Look at the place we are at. We are a 20 man team, and our office, the office space, right? Just imagine the office, right, is the meeting room, right, is half of this room, and it was how are we going to do this? But I recall he really said it with such conviction and belief that we'll get there, that I knew deep in my heart that this is the guy that I had to follow. And to date, I've never regretted that decision. Why I actually stayed on is really because the work is never finished. We have not been close to actually overturning or revolutionizing how the industry is run. And I really want to see that dream come to fruition. And that is something that that drives me every day, and why I stayed on as well. And of course, my commitment to clients, they put in their hard-earned money with me. This is something that I have, committed and promised them. So of course, I started the journey, having that struggle because of that conviction. I always thought that reaching out to friends is something that I'm taking away from them. And this was a struggle that I had for 2 years actually. So if you do not know, so my first year as a student advisor, I did about 14K commissions. So that was slightly over 1K per month. But the second year was a year that I thought that I did do much better, but I actually didn't. I ended the year with 17,000 commissions, to which actually almost half of my, that year is actually doing full time, which means is that even as a full time, I'm earning about $1,000 per month, which is actually much lesser than whatever my friends were earning. And it's because I really didn't believe in the work that I was doing, I always feel that I'm in a sales role.
Mm.
So, I struggled. I always thought that, what would my friends think of me? Okay, and of course, one of the biggest limiting belief that I had was that is financial advisory a career that people who don't do well in school take it up as a last resort.
Mm.
Sometimes you say that this guy he don't do so well in school, that's why he go FA lah. Then FA now can earn good money, easy money. A lot of this stigma that's floating around the internet is very common.
Yep.
And of course, a lot of people doubting me lah, say that, hey Kenny, are you really going to stay in the industry? Even my parents, my dad, showed concern lah. He said that, are you sure you want to do this? But through all these struggles, right, in the depths of that despair, and I really found myself. I really found the strength that I never had, and I really questioned, okay, what am I in the business for? And I realized that the backbone of this is really the clients. Okay, you're serving the clients, and is there any way that I can give value back to them? And I actually spoken to one of my colleagues who actually gave me a very belief shifting paradigm, where she said that you should wear your industry like a badge of honor. You're out there saving lives, and the fact that you are putting yourself out there, okay, and you are helping people make a decision that is good for them, you should deserve the compensation that you have. A lot of people feel that they are very undeserving of the commissions they earn, but the fact that you actually break someone's belief, which is one of the hardest skill in the world, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that. Okay, so I think that it was one of the biggest belief shifting that really helped me to go out from that rut, okay, all the way to someone who is very convicted of the work that I'm doing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I think two words that you mentioned, right? Number one, the word was undeserving at first, right? You felt undeserving. And then the second thing that I caught in your sharing just now, right? You mentioned this another word. I felt shame of this career as well. Shame that is this a last resort? And let's expand that a little bit more, because for the viewers or the listeners listening to this podcast, right, some of them might resonate. You see, some of them maybe feel shame, maybe feel undeserving. Share with us, how did you specifically overcome this undeservingness in yourself before we talk about shame?
Okay, so it's very common now. Okay, I've noticed among advisors is that they feel that they are always taking away from someone. Let's say in a sale, right, I approach you is because I want a sale out of you. So that's very common, especially if you are working with a warm group of friends that you have not reached out in a long period of time. So it is very common for people to actually be very not so confident in actually reaching out to all of these people they have talked to in a long time, because they feel that I haven't really talked to this guy in a long time, and when I reach out to him, then most likely it's just for a bad, like a sale, which is a bad intention lah. So primarily the feeling of undeserving, I feel that the feeling of undeservingness is really the person not really understanding what a sale actually means. Let's look at it in the real life lah. Everything is a sale. There's always some form of transaction. It's just that not every exchange is the currency is money. Let's say if you are talking about maybe over an agreement, okay, I exchange my time, okay, for your compliment, for example, or I can exchange my time for a future favor from you. So sometimes people often demonize lah, I would say, the word sales is because it's always about that very monetary transaction, but it's not really the case. I view sales as a way to help people go from wherever they are in a problem state, okay, and really help them make a decision that is good for them to a promised state. Okay, and just by understanding this idea, people can really overcome the idea of undeservingness, because this skill itself is a highly valued skill that not many people are willing to take. Why? It's because the price to pay is the emotions that you have to overcome, which is something that not many people are willing to do. So from when I learned that concept, especially I've actually learned this partly from Daryl as well, really helped me to shift the identity lah, of really moving from being very undeserving to someone that, hey, I have actually impacted this person's life and potentially saved his life, because now he's properly insured. Okay, now he has set up his portfolio that allows him to fast track his retirement, then cool. Then I deserve that compensation because I have turned someone else's life around.
Fantastically said. I want to summarize everything for the audience to listen to this, right? Whatever Kenny mentioned, right, is extremely powerful because number one, he mentioned that previously his limiting belief about this occupation, as someone who's a salesperson, I'm taking something away. I'm making a sale out of you. I'm taking money away. Hence, there's a lot more shame. But on the flip side, now he look at this career as something that is not easy to do, and you're bringing someone from a problem state to a solution place, a promised land. I'm doing a lot of great work for this person. Obviously, I deserve the money. I deserve a lot more than money, man. And hence, he brings out more pride than shame. Am I right to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Exactly.
And another thing you mentioned, right? You also say that this career has a lot of emotional up and down. Can you share with us one point or one period of this career or even life in general, right, where you was really down, and how do you get out of that?
Great question. Okay, so I'll share two stories actually.
Yep.
So one is before I joined the industry, and one was during the industry. Okay, so some context. So in the past, I recall that I was in I was in OCS. Okay, and back then I was an underdog. I recalled my instructors wanted me out so badly. No, I did not do well at all in my course. I was very clumsy. I said the wrong thing at the wrong time, and I was one foot out the door. And I recalled what happened was that nearing my graduation and commission, the head instructor actually told me, Kenny, I'm very surprised that you lasted the way as long as you did, because normally people would have been out already. You are very lucky. And I felt very ashamed, and at that time very low, because I just barely made it. I don't deserve to be a commission officer. But one belief shifting paradigm that happened, okay, was that another instructor actually came up to me and said that, Kenny, I'm very proud of you. How I describe you to my other instructors, you are 打不死的蟑螂, which means you are the unkillable cockroach.
Yeah.
Cockroach is like, you can survive a lot of nuclear blasts and stuff, which give me a lot of encouragement, because I know that my biggest strength, right, is that I can't be killed, as long as I'm still alive and I'm still working towards a goal, then sure, I can make it through. And true enough, the second year, what happened was that I actually did very well in my unit. Okay, I gained a lot of respect, and a lot of people respected me as well. So I even won best commander at one of the months, which I was very, very proud of it. And eventually I had a fairy tale ending. I got the chance to be a parade commander in front of the whole 700 800 battalion size, which really, I think at that moment, a belief stuck in me whereby anyone can actually do it. You just need to break out of that belief that you don't deserve much better in life. Yeah, and I actually carried that blueprint over even into my career, whereby there was once, of course, like you mentioned, during the period whereby I was only 1K, but I always tell myself that I have done this before. This is not the first time that I was on the brink of death, but I came back alive. I can do it again. I just need to persist through. And true enough, I just sought solutions, and I may not know the whole solution, but I just sought the most clearest solution first, and I just took steps along the way where the path itself just naturally illuminates. But it's always about just keep walking, and you find the answers along the way, which I till today carry that in my belief. Yep.
Yeah, I think whatever he shared, right, is extremely powerful. There was one phrase or something that he shared with me last time. I laughed. He said this: if you're in a drowning, you're drowning in the ocean. What was that again? Say again.
Yeah, so I thought that
your philosophy, right? Yeah.
So, let's face it. Okay, so when I was telling Daryl, a while ago, on why some people, refuse to get help, and refuse to invest in themselves or coach to help them through, and I always tell them that the coach may not carry you throughout, but if the coach offer you help to move to the next step, why if you are, let's say, drowning in the sea, right, you will want to just take the first help first, right? Even if it was a wooden stick, even if it was uncomfortable, at least it's a support that helps you to stay afloat for much longer. And once you stay afloat with much longer, once you have more breathing space, then okay, cool. Then can I grab onto a much more comfortable and more sturdy rod? And from there, then I pull myself up by, getting progressively better and better help. So I'll just share my experience with Daryl. So I recall when I was, earning I just had a bit of breakthrough, but I wanted to have a little bit more. I wanted to have more emotional management. So actually, I was finding coaches really to help, and so happened that I met Daryl. And I recall I wasn't even like very rich back then. I only have a few thousand in the bank. So I recall, Daryl. I asked him lah, like I don't have much and stuff. Like, I don't have much to actually give, and also to take on your coaching. But he told me, back then, when he was an entrepreneur, he also didn't have money. And I recall his coaching was like 30K. That was even worse. That was even like crazier. Then I was very curious. I asked him, like, what made you do it? And he said that he just believed that it will work out, and he just have to, just take the first step, because that's the clearest step forward. Yeah, do I suggest everyone to do this? This was my personal risk that I took, but I never regretted the decision. I saw Daryl as a way that I could move myself forward, and I just grabbed onto the first rock, and of course put myself a little bit further. And I'm very, very thankful for Daryl's coaching, and the way that he brought me up, because that has helped me to earn a lot more, so that I can reinvest these skills to expand the business, okay, in terms of learning how to communicate better. And like I mentioned, it's always about taking that first step first, then the next path will eliminate itself.
Fantastic. And I think that the last time we had lunch, he used a different analogy. He said this: even if it's a python, if I can squish the python so that I can move us up, I will do it,
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's a funny analogy for those audience listening to this. Regardless, is it one more book, is it one more YouTube video, is it one more coach or whatever it is, do one step closer to get you to your promised land. I think that's what we can learn from Kenny's experience. Okay. And also just nice, you mentioned these two words just now. You mentioned unkillable cockroach. And I want to share some gem, right, with the audience here. One thing that you guys must take note, right, is the self-image that you have. Because for Kenny, his self-image is what? I cannot die. Right, his image is I'm an unkillable cockroach. Have huge perseverance, determination. Right. You cannot kill me. And I think this is something that you should start wondering. If those of you watching this right now, right, what is my self-image? How do you see yourself? And this is something that I even write on my iPad down here. Right, Daryl Breakthrough. Awesome. So this is my identity, right? Every day I see myself and I sign myself. Daryl Breakthrough. This is what I stand for. I want to give myself breakthrough, and also want to help others break through as well. Which leads to the next question, right, Kenny? I want to ask you, right, when it comes to, just now you mentioned the emotional mastery that you find that, hey, I wanted to learn something on this. Why was that important to you, actually?
So, great question. So, back then, right, I recalled, some of my friends and colleagues were asking me, like, why out of the blue, why learn about mindset? That's like, so out of the blue, why would an advisor need, like, mindset training or whatever not? Can't you learn it from YouTube or whatever not? So to me, back then, why I was looking for that is because I recall my state of the problem back then wasn't about running appointments. It was something deeper than that, and I realized that it's really due to my conviction that I wasn't really speaking the way of my truth to others, and I'm not commanding that respect that I'm getting from perhaps compared to, let's say, an advisor that's performing very well, and the clients respect them. But why is it that it feels that my clients, not my clients specifically, but some people taking me for granted? And I realized that the deeper problem is really due to whatever's internal inside. And I knew that Daryl was that answer, because he can answer what's going on inside, and eventually it will manifest itself outside. So I always liken business as a reflection of your inner world.
Yep.
So the state of why your business is not doing well or doing well is really because of how you see yourself internally. That rings true in your life as well. So I was speaking to my friend yesterday, and I was telling him that perhaps you are you are a very nice guy, but perhaps you're not commanding that authority in your workspace is because internally you have a lot of negative energy. You always feel that you are a victim and you can't control your situation, and because of that, that manifested in the energy to others, and people take you for granted. And that is when I realized that internal emotional management is so important, because that is the number one thing that kills advisors every single day, or even everyone, that they are always limiting by their own mismanagement of emotions.
Yeah, and share with us, right? So thankful for you being so vulnerable and sharing us the challenges that you mentioned just now. Because of whatever that you victimize yourself, you constantly, start playing it small, blaming the environment, things like that. And prior to this podcast, I actually asked you, right, what was that one big change? You mentioned the word ownership, accountability. Can you explain more as well for the audience listening to this?
Okay, cool. So I read this book called Extreme Ownership by Joko Willing. Okay, and he says, a very hot take on this is that everything bad that happens to you, it all comes down to your fault, even if it's not unintentional. Sometimes it may be someone's honest fault that is not yours, but the more ownership that you take on the problem itself, right, the more productively you move forward. You see, I actually came across this quote by Alex Hormozy, which is someone that I really respect in the business world. And he says that the moment you point a finger to someone or something, you are giving power to that person or something over your life. Which means is that I am not where I want is because of my family, my background, or circumstance. And sure, it may be the reason, but the thing is that you're pointing the power over to them and giving them the power to have control over your own life, which means that I'm not able to get to where I am because of circumstances I cannot control. But the moment you start pointing the finger back to you, you realize that I am the problem. Can I change my situation? Can I actually solve my own? Can I even get out of the environment that I am, create my own opportunities? And that is what's the biggest belief shifting is, that many advisors or even people in the corporate sector should take note of. You have your bosses that always I heard many times people are always complaining about the lack of mentorship, the lack of people helping them. But have you ever thought about examining yourself and really understanding that perhaps could it be the way that you ask for a favor? Could it be the way you communicate with your leader that cause that miscommunication in the first place? I think that is very underrated and something that many people should and must know in order to have that breakthrough in their career.
Yeah, now you got me curious, you see, because you mentioned that, hey, now I take on more ownership, I take more accountability, everything's my fault. As compared to previously, you kind of blame the environment, blame the leads, and blame the prospects and things like that, right? What we've asked the thorough journey, right, the behind the scenes, right? How do you go from like really earning 1K commission every single month to like achieving MDRT? What was the behind the scenes? What was some internal shift you have to make first?
Okay, cool. So before, back then, when I was earning 1K and whatnot, right? The first person that I always blame, or I not the first person. The first thing I always blame is the lack of network. Okay, I always tell myself that, oh look, this advisor. Okay, if you all don't know who Wilfred is, he's very very big in the industry. Oh, this guy got to where he is because of his network, of his social media reach, that he's able to have that, person. Then that is very very common. Then let's say if someone with a lesser reach, then I'll say that, oh, this person get to where he was because naturally she's more convicted, her prospects treat her more seriously, she's a lot more fiercer. I'm not that person, I'm a more social person, people know me as this person. So you see, I keep blaming like different circumstances, like unintentionally, even though I didn't verbalize it out, but it has been in my voice. And it's very common for people to feel that way lah, and also feel that the environment, they're stuck in certain environment. So what shifted, that first shift, of course, like I mentioned, okay, is about taking self-ownership and realize that, okay, could it be me? Then when this happens, right, then it actually opens a lot of opportunities, because I start to realize a lot of my deficiency in my character, in my beliefs, and in my skill sets. That And these three things are the common things that hold entrepreneurs and people back from having that career. So that is when I start to examine which are the areas that I need to improve in, which I realized skill sets, maybe communication. I wasn't communicating my ideas in a very concise and straightforward way. Okay, so I went to find coaches in that area. And of course, let's say in terms of brand positioning, I was not very clear on the direction I want to head. So cool. Then I went to find coaches to help me with my business. Okay, then lastly, okay, is to also really examine and really understand that the map is not the territory. So this is this is a mental model that I have. I believe it's the strongest mental model that anyone should have, which is okay. So what the quote means, right? Okay, is that let's say in Singapore. Okay, Singapore, you know of like there's this HDB that's 11 stories high, there's that Bukit Timah Hill, and you understand the contours, you understand the geography down to the last grain of sand or rocks. But if you look at it from a higher level, you realize that everything's represented as a simple map. You're not going to see on the map that at this particular location that this story is this high, okay, or maybe there's this like particular garden. It's a very simplified way, and that is the worldview that most people see, like the reality that people see. They see the world and they see things from their lens, okay, of how the world is represented, but the actual reality on the ground may not be the same. And people need to realize that they just need to keep challenging whatever old beliefs that they have. So one of the old beliefs that people say is that, this guy got to where he is because he's talented. And I realized that this is a myth, So, and I realized that, these are the old beliefs that, unfortunately, the older generation passed down to us and we accept its reality. But can we challenge that? Is that the reality that we see? So, I want to share one more story.
Go ahead.
One story with regards to talent in general. Okay, so back then, right, when I was still in university, I actually played a lot of floorball. And as a junior, back then I thought that, hey, I started in university, most likely I'm just going to play recreationally. I'm too old to actually be very good at the sport. Because people play sports and play floorball since primary school, secondary school. I can never catch up with that, their skills. So what happened was that I actually met a senior. So he was coming back from like a national training, and whatnot lah. So I was like, dude, when did you start playing floorball? Then he said, university. And I was like, I opened my eyes and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you started university for 1-2 years and now you are training at the national level. They say it's a lot of hard work. So that was when I really truly understand, right, that am I holding on to certain old beliefs that may not be true today? Can I be in university and train very hard now and still have the opportunities and be as good as people? Actually, it's possible. So I carry on the beliefs and I train very hard. So and eventually I made it through the first cut in the World University Floorball team, which I was very, very proud of that achievement because I broke that belief that you have to start sports from young. And it was through a lot of hard work that I realized this. Unfortunately, I didn't go very far because COVID happened and priorities changed, but I carried that belief over right now also.
Beautiful. I just want to recap everything that Kenny has mentioned so far, thus far. And I think that is very powerful and valuable lessons that all of you listening to this, right, can actually learn from it. Number one, he mentioned deservingness. Regardless of occupation, regardless what your role you're playing at right now, you constantly challenge yourself, right? What kind of beliefs you have to make yourself either feel proud that you deserve it or you feel shame, the undeserving of it. Be very mindful of that. And number two, he also mentioned the power of emotional mastery. It's not so much about a skill set that you have, it's sometimes about whether are you managing yourself, your mind, your emotions well, whether are you victimizing yourself or not. And the third thing he mentioned as well is accountability, responsibility. Are you taking up the accountability and really say that, hey, shit, it's my fault. What can I change today that can give me back my power? Another thing that he also mentioned, breaking beliefs, constantly challenging your worldview. And I think this is extremely crucial because many times we do not know what we don't know. That's why we get books, we read YouTube, watch YouTube videos, get coaches to expand our mind. And all in all, pretty much these are four powerful stuff that help him to achieve such breakthroughs today. And which brings me to another question, which I want to challenge you a bit more vulnerably, Kenny. When was one time where you truly doubted yourself or your journey towards greatness? Where was that? Share with the audience.
Okay, greatness. Okay. So this happened quite recently. Okay, so last year I achieved my MDRT, and it was quite a lot of hard work, and I really identify myself as someone that are playing at the bigger leagues already. So at the start of the year, right, I ventured into really go on full LinkedIn and really trying to build a brand from there. And the thing is that for the first quarter of this year, right, I had nothing, no results out of it. Yet I was spending almost 60-70% of my time on this endeavor, and people ask me like question lah, like the first thing I always share with them my excitement of building a brand there, giving value back and really connecting with the engineers there. And people always ask me the first thing is that, so what were the results? So back then I felt very frustrated talking to anyone about this because I have nothing to show for it. It's not their fault. It's just that I had nothing to show for it, and that was when I really doubted myself. And I doubted myself more is because I came so far, having so much breakthroughs last year, inspiring so many people, and yet now I feel that I'm back to square one. I honestly also feel very ashamed to tell people like what's my progress this year, because I had nothing to show for it. And I think that was when I really did doubt myself and question whether all of these are worth it in the first place. Until quite recently, actually yesterday, where I closed my first LinkedIn deal and was quite a decent case, and that broke that limiting belief again. I was very inspired that the person chose to do it because she had that trust in me, and I realized that I must have done something right. So, the Kenny that you see now that are speaking of these truths is also the Kenny that is still vulnerably struggling with the same things that you do. The struggle of self-doubt, the struggle of not knowing where the destination is, and the worst, or not the worst, but the most painful of it is people telling you, you can go the easier route. Why do this? Just do the traditional way of reaching out to people. Why not following this? But I was very committed in that journey to do something different, and that is how I overcome that self-doubt lah. Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful. For those of you listening to this, I think that was a vulnerability that he reviewed right now. The recent challenge that he faced, and at the same time he persevere, knowing the reason why he did it, so that he don't falter and go back to the old ways of comfort as well. And I really applaud you for that transparency with us as well, which leads me to another question. I'm just curious for myself to understand, right? How come you are so convicted, right, in getting coaches for branding, coaches for your emotional mastery, coaches for all of these things? What's the thought process for coaching?
Okay, it's a very simple concept. Now, when it comes to life or like business, okay, let's talk about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship results, the output, right, is determined by three factors. Okay, is determined by the volume of work that you do, multiplied by the skill sets that you have, and the time that is actually you continue and commit through that process. So the thing that most entrepreneurs are unwilling to do is to actually invest in coaches, because they always think in a monetary exchange. I have to exchange money for something, and they're not very willing to do that because money is like a security to them. But to me, I see as a financial advisory as a business that is no different from any other business. You see, eventually, okay, you'll reach a point of time where you have a high level of skill sets and high level of income. But if you were to do it all on your own, right? Okay, I have to start the compounding of the skills or learning the skill sets at a much earlier stage, and it will take me, let's say, 20 years to get to my desired stage. Correct. Which means is that I'm not exchanging money, I'm just using my time, okay, to build up the skill sets and eventually the wealth. But to me, I always feel that why spend or exchange that time that's required when I can pay for skills today, so that I can start the compounding much faster, skills compounding much faster, and I can get closer to my desired level of skill sets where I could have taken 5 years. And the biggest and I always feel that money can always be earned back, but what can't be earned back is time. So you can eventually reach that level of skill sets and that wealth that you desire. It's either you pay with time or you pay with money. And I always pay with money because I know that time cannot be bought back.
That's freaking profound, by the way. And how did you realize, come to the conclusion that time is more powerful than money?
Because right, great question. So I realize this is because I see how many older, let's say, entrepreneurs, right, let's say in my courses, right, that are still struggling with certain problems that I have like a few months ago. And I was like, oh shit, if I were in that position, how would I feel? For 15, 20 years, I had a problem that I did not solve when I was 15 years old. And how much has it held me back since? And I didn't want that to happen to myself. I realized that I just need to have that strong enough foundation, learn all the mistakes that others people have made, so that eventually 20 years down the road, I'll be in a very, very different place from them. And it's not to say they're not doing well for themselves. They're doing really well, but just that the potential, like how much potential you're leaving on the table. And I think so that is when I have that epiphany that, look, it's either I pay for time, I pay for skills using time or money, and that's when I made the clearest decision.
Was there a specific event in your life, right, that made you realize that time is extremely powerful and precious as compared to money?
So actually one way is just to see that you are not as youthful as you look. Then you realize that, oh shit, like I compare myself like 21, like dude, I look somehow younger. And at the same time, I realized that I'm nearing 30 already, and it's not to compare necessarily compare, but I seen people at my age have accomplished much more, and I just feel that I could have been doing so much more if I have learned the skills previously lah. It's like how I learned a lot of skills last year, and I realized that only if I had learned this at the start of my career, I wouldn't have spent so much time, effort to relearn whatever I've known. And let's say if I drag on this problem at the 10, 15 years, right, I would be even more reluctant to change. So that's when I realized that I'm racing against time.
Profound. And I think that this will be very powerful for those of you watching to really understand why some advisors, right, willing to really invest so much heavily in their business and themselves, or even some entrepreneurs out there, right, they're willing to do all of these things, right, because they truly have a belief that, hey, money I can always earn back. And they really, really, truly have the conviction and belief that, hey, millions of dollars any day I can get it in 5 years' time. What is 5,000? What is 10,000? And I think I can resonate strongly with whatever Kenny mentioned, because just now, for the viewers and audience listening to this, I invested $30,000 in the past to build this business as well. 4 years ago, I literally had $12,000 in the bank. And I was paying for my house bills as well, 2K every single month. What the hell am I thinking, right, if I were to invest 30,000? Is exactly what Kenny mentioned, because at that point of time, that was the best decision I can make. That will move me one step closer to my goal. Is that really the best? Probably yes. Other than that, I don't do anything, and I just rot my life and go back to 9 to 5, right? And the second thing is that I start asking myself, even if I make the worst decision, go on board is the worst decision, can I earn this money back again? Maybe 1 year, 2 years of career, 9 to 5 again, earn back already, right? But on the flip side, what's the best case that can have actually happen? I will probably create this business that I'm very purposeful about and do this for the next 10, 20 years. Hey, cool, let's go. So I think at the end of the day, for those of you who are on the same situation as us, on the fence, want to do something that's risky, start taking calculated risk. And what's the best that could actually happen as compared to what's the worst that you can lose. I think that's one thing that really Kenny represented very well. Yeah, with that being said, right, I think we will come to the end of this podcast, but I want to end off with one question for you. What advice would you give to those underdogs out there right now, going through a tiring phase of being an underdog, doubting themselves, struggling towards different definition of success, what would you say to them?
Master the middle. Okay, so what does master the middle means? This is a concept I also borrowed from Alex Hormozy. A lot of people like to celebrate the beginning. Of course, you tell people your big goals, and people are like, wow, you have a big goal. That's a good goal. Go ahead. And a lot of people fantasize the end, which is, wow, they are cheering for you. You finish your marathon, good job, and they celebrate the accolades, they celebrate the success, the celebrations. But the ones who win are the ones who enjoy the middle, the hard 42 km, the ones that you just keep walking and you see no results. And I can tell you, all the underdogs out there, right? Just keep walking, just keep telling yourself that you're just making one step in the right direction, okay, and the path will eliminate itself. I always pick stories outside and try to find underdog stories, because that really breaks the belief that you have to be or stuck with a certain resources to be successful. You don't. It's like talent. I think talent is a bullshit myth that has been passed down to us, unfortunately, by the older generation, because that was their old belief. But I have seen, I've shared the story of cases where that's not the case. My friend, who is training in national team, he's not naturally talented, but he's very hardworking because he used his hard work to make up for that skill deficiency, which most of people can do. And to all the underdogs out there, right? Okay, just tell yourself, at the end of the day, you have a great story to tell. And 99% of the people out there, right, are like you. And just keep walking and you'll get there. And I will be very, very proud, to see you at the finishing line as well.
Fantastic. Yes, so I have a question for you, Kenny.
Yep.
Right, previously you mentioned that you have 1K FYC, 1K commission for the rest of you
correct.
to understand. And where is your current progression and what you're working towards right now?
Okay, so I started about 1K plus per month, and as of last year, my income was about 8 to 10 times that amount, about 10 times so it's about 10K. So of course, the number is not to show off or brag, but it's just I'm very proud because I actually had that growth in my career, and that was the way moving forward. So right now, I feel that I am actually restarting because I'm doing something that's a little bit different on LinkedIn. So I'm actually building back up again, but I don't feel that I've fallen way behind like where I was last year. It's just that I'm carrying that same characters and beliefs, but now I just have to build back my skill sets to eventually get back to where I was before. Yeah.
Right, fantastic. Thank you for that. Where can they find you at?
Awesome. You can find me on Instagram, so it's KENNYNGMH with underline. On LinkedIn, you can just find me Kenny Ng. I'm not sure whether I will appear on the search, but maybe you can link
We'll drop a link.
my socials there. Yeah, so you feel free to connect with me. It does not have to be anything. You can just ask me about my life, my experiences, as well as the journey I had there, and I would love to have a chat with you.
Fantastic. For those of you who enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and then follow us on this channel as well. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.